I fell in love with the food scene in Los Angeles. It's a very eclectic scene, lots of different countries, lots of different styles and fares of food, and each restaurant I worked in had different wine selection. So over time I just realized how much there was to it, and as I started to study wine and beer, I learned that there's so much culture that goes into it, and breaking bread is such an ancient tradition for all of us. It really brings community together. So I found that if I continued on this path, it would make me happy, and I got to be there for others while they were experiencing new things. It's just brings me a lot of joy. So. Well, I was in hospitality for almost 23 years in Los Angeles, and it's kind of the old school way of just tasting as many different wines as possible and learning along the way. I went to a wonderful tasting bar for almost 17 years, and the guys there were wonderful. It's called Vendome in Toluca Lake, right outside. It's in the Bob Hope area of Burbank. And 4 or 5 days a week, you could just walk in and sit down for 1 or 2 tastings or sit down for the entire night. And it was a great way to kind of taste through tens of thousands of wines. And so nowadays you can sit in a classroom and there's wonderful PowerPoint presentations and people can learn through these great books that have been written. But at the time, there wasn't as much available. And so I just kind of did it the old school way and fell in love with it more and more. So, yeah. Then there's movies that came out and there's accreditations, certifications and things that I said, oh, well, why don't I apply myself for those tests and just really buckle down, and yeah, it's like each one of those is a different mountain to climb and another challenge. So maybe in another year or two I'll find some other, accreditation I want to go after, and then kind of bury myself in books again and start studying. So, yeah. Well, it was really a collaboration, myself and Mario, the owner of Chèvre. It's a wonderful gourmet cheese and meat and specialty store. So I was coming in as a civilian, just buying goods that I couldn't find anywhere else in Miami that I'd missed from California. And then one day we geeked out on his cheesecake, amazing burnt Basque cheesecake, and I brought in some strawberry lambics and beers from Belgium that I thought go really well with that cheesecake. And so when I let him try, and then he said, ooh, I've got this cheese, and he started breaking out different cheeses, and the two of us knew that we had something going, that we were both like kids in a candy store getting to play. So I love being a somm in restaurants, but the difference is you only get 30 seconds with a guest in a restaurant. And so I had told him that I'd really like the opportunity to teach and to be there with guests for an hour or 2 hours at a time and get in depth and answer questions and help folks really learn. And so he knew of an adjoining space that was a law office at the time, and he thought, okay, well, we can't fit what we want to do in that room. I was tasting wines to help select wines for his store in the room while people were shopping, and the room is a very small room, and so we said this can't overlap. So that came the Bibliothèque, and I always wanted a horseshoe style bar because I wanted the option, the ability to teach and have everyone around so I could give better hospitality, and also that they could interact with each other, and it builds community. So by the end of the night, everyone's talking with each other, they have new friends, there's just this cool magic that kind of happens. And so books, maps around the room, everyone's welcome to take them down and look at them if they have a question, and it's just, some people learn visually, some people learn through the tactile taste, some people need to hear it. So it's just the space it's a space for education and growth and enjoying oneself. And so libraries can have the ability to heighten oneself, the state of thought, and we keep it kind of relaxed too. So it's a relaxed, comfortable, heightened space. So yeah, we're trying to keep it away. We're not competing with the spots that are more like sexy in Miami. That's not our thing. We're attached to a Montessori school, so we have our own identity, and we're just trying to keep it fun. And I think wine is already looked at as such a pretentious thing by so many people. I'd rather keep it down to earth, and so rather than put on the pinstripe and the tie, I just would rather folks be here for the wine as the focus. The wonderful thing about being attached to a gourmet cheese and specialty store is that everybody who comes through for the sandwiches and the cheeses, they're looking for something of quality, and something that where they can learn about the cheese affineur that provided it, or the story that comes behind whatever the ingredient is. And that's what attracted me to working with Mario in the first place, is that he really actually is learning everything about this. And I think those who are adventurous, who know that they enjoy something, but they just don't, they know there could be something else that they're just waiting to be turned on to. And so The tastings and the way that I set up a lot of my events are, maybe 10, 12, 15 different wines, and so maybe there's a couple things that they recognize and then some things that they don't, but they're putting themselves in my hands and in a way, and we keep our markups a lot lower than restaurants, which makes it a lot more conducive to people coming in of all different, economic, backgrounds and whatever they want to drop. They can try value-driven wines. They can try really high-end wines. We rent out the space for birthdays, for team building, and we have law firms and real estate groups and folks who just want to have a way to get together, have some structure in their social, interactions, and learning about something. Like a lot of folks have never found the answer or asked the questions to what are acid or what are tannin, what is structure, what are these things? You hear these things thrown around a lot, but in a restaurant, you're not going to ask in front of your table of friends. People feel like they're going to get a little bit embarrassed, or they just don't know if it applies. And so we go years, maybe decades, with hearing these terms and not knowing what they are. So I'd love to help. I love helping laymen and those who are just beginning, as well as those who are experts or those who are studying, because I was in all those places at one point. And I've been teaching Wine 101 for almost 10 years now to restaurants and different crews or staff, and I love folks asking new questions in front of each other, learning, and then walking away that night going, oh, okay, this makes sense now, like how a grape ripens, or what the fermentation process even is. I mean, it's involved in yogurts and cheese and kombucha and so many different things in beer. This is the yeast, and it eats the sugar and it creates carbon dioxide, and this is how a warm climate affects something or how a cool climate affects something. And so it's for those who like to learn. And I think a lot of the people kind of sometimes think that folks don't have a very long attention span these days. And that's just because the way things are cut on TV or film or in interviews, usually you get 10 seconds or 3 seconds and you can't really get into stuff. But now we see with long form podcasts, and we see with people are willing to listen for an hour and a half while they're washing the dishes or while they're doing laundry or doing anything, and going for a jog or a walk. So I don't like to assume that we're in a bad state in our culture. I think it's out there. There's a passion for it, and I think that I want to provide a space for that. And so to nurture, those who just want to take things a little further, go a little deeper. So yeah, I feel blessed to have the space to do that. And every time, it's word of mouth right now. We have half of the room at any given time has been in the room before, and they all tell a +1. And then someone sitting in the room and goes, you know what? I'd love to have a birthday here. I like the controlled environment, or I'd like to, and so now we're booking all the way through the holidays, and it's really wonderful. So half of our time is private events, and the other half is a chance to have new folks come through for the very first time, and it's exciting, so. I love the fall and I love the holiday time. So it's a chance the weather dips a little bit. I know it's Miami, it's not as much as a dip for the rest of the country, but we get a lot of folks that come in from Canada and from New York, and it's a chance to play with both whites and reds. There's a lot of seasonal, the foods are going to change. We're going to get into more harvest vegetables and root vegetables, and so it's a chance to really teach folks how to pair with those. So bigger, bolder reds. You can play with more complex whites. I have Californian wines are very popular out here, and French wines, of course, and Italian, Argentinian, but it's cool to put them opposite each other. So to say, here's Californian Bordeaux blends versus the original French, and folks get a chance to see, do I like a little earthier, dirtier, funkier, a little bit more fruit or opulent? And so, we're going to be having a lot of fun with the bolder, bigger wines that when it's 100 degrees here with 100% humidity, you just can't enjoy necessarily all the time. So looking forward to it for sure. And then the sweets. I mean, when it comes to like Thanksgiving and Christmas, you have so many great desserts. So playing with like pies and cakes and all the desserts that you can give as gifts for Christmas time. Holiday baskets are a big deal for us too. So we're going to be able to pair wines with those. So some wines that have residual sugar, like Rieslings or Port or Tokai, Sauterne, these things that you can really show how 1 + 1 = 3 when you have something that's sweet. You can't put a regular dry wine with a sweet food. It makes the wine taste sour. So we're opening up that whole realm and world to people so they know how to play. I've done pairings with beer pairings with Girl Scout cookies. I've done it with Halloween candies. And so there's a lot of really fun, cool things that you can introduce folks to. So, yeah. Okay, so favorite wines. it's like picking amongst children. But I am a fan of Burgundy, and I know it's kind of cliche to the other sommeliers because a lot of people they start with a certain palate and they move their way through and eventually arrive with the older style of Pinot Noir and Chardonnays and what we call Redbergs and Whitebergs. I find they're super complex. They have a nice acidity to them, and that means that at the end there's like a tart or kind of sour element, which is really conducive to pairing with a lot of different foods. Pinot Noir is like the Swiss Army knife for red wines. It can pretty much go with everything, and from fish to meats to salads to vegetables. So falling in love with Burgundy is like the best and worst day of your life when it comes to financially, supporting that habit. But it's a wonderful, wonderful place. The land changes there so quickly, the parcels. So from one estate to another, there's a different expression of the grape, and so you can spend an entire lifetime just studying this small little range between Dijon and Lyon, handful of miles, and everything is just constantly changing. Every parcel is special and different. So I find that it's a large mountain to climb, but it's a lot of fun. So I love these wines. Well, it's like I mean, you just asked like what's the favorite wines, and it's really difficult for me to pick because for me it's all about the food that you're enjoying or the setting or the environment. And so there's some things that are going to be perfect with, whether I'm having nachos or barbecue or whether I'm having sweets or candies or cookies. There's always something cool that I always think of that, synergy, 1 + 1 = 3. So you have the right thing and it just makes an entire memory and experience out of it. And so I've been plugging and playing for years trying to figure out what can work with other things. And you can read things online, but sometimes I find people are just regurgitating the same information and they actually haven't been in the lab themselves doing it. So like when I did my pie pairings a couple years ago, I did a blog on pies, and I went out and actually found a dozen different types of pie, and I ate every single slice of those pies, and I had almost 12 to 15 different beers out in front or 10 different wines out, and I was going through and seeing, does this work or doesn't this work, just so that I could of course take the hit on the pounds that I would put on so that others didn't have to go through that. But there's when it clicks, and so having like a strawberry lambic from Belgium with like a lemon shortbread from the Girl Scout cookie, you get strawberry lemonade, which is incredible. Or having peanut butter on a cookie, and then having a Rochefort Trappist monastery beer with like date and fig and prune and raisin. You're now bringing in like the dark fruit with that chocolate and peanut butter. You can create like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in your mouth with the right a right drink and the right food. So it's a lot of fun, and it's a way to tie into my childhood. I grew up eating certain candies, so even when I'm smelling wines and detecting, I still use like, oh, this is a wild berry Skittle, this is a Starburst, this is a Haribo gummy bear, pineapple, and that's how I remember things. It all goes back to childhood. I find that scent is very nostalgic and sentimental, and it always connects to memories. And so the more that I can keep these foods in my life and keep playing, the more that I just have a wonderful, it's fond memories, and you do that with other people and then they have a lot of fun with it too. And it's great to show up to parties and potlucks and be like, hey guys, you gotta try this is so cool, So it's the discovery. It's like a little bit of detective work, and then enjoying the benefits of it for years to come once you've made that connection. So. I have a giant passion for beer, and I fell in love with it while I was working in all the different restaurants in Los Angeles. California's got a wonderful beer scene. It's kind of cutting edge. So I found that wine can accomplish a lot with pairings because you basically have something that's got a tart, sour finish. It's basically like having vinegar that you can pour on a salad or on food. But beer is bread, and beer can be malted or caramelized or baked or roasted or smoked in so many different ways. So any dish that you eat or any food that you have that would go well with bread will go well with beer. And there's 140 styles out there. I'm a certified Cicerone, which is a beer sommelier. I'm one of a handful to be both a certified sommelier with the Court of Masters as well as a Cicerone. There were only like half a dozen to a dozen when I tested at the time, a handful of years ago. There might be more now. I hope there's more now. I hope it's a growing field. But I found that both beer and wine are like helicopter and a plane. They both can fly, but they fly in totally different ways, and they have different functions. And so you can play with having the sugar element of a beer, like a Belgian beer that's crafted by the Trappist monasteries with the monks. They might use Belgian cane sugar, they might use coriander, they might be using different spices. It's really exciting. You can play, they're very food friendly. If I'm doing barbecue and there's a tough glaze on there that has like some sour element to it, or vinegar, it can destroy a lot of wines, but there's a ton of beers that can come right in and help save the day. Also, if I would come home back in the day and maybe didn't have a lot of money to my name and I didn't want to buy a $10 bottle of wine that might not be that great, I could get two $5 beers that are 100-point world-class beers that would be absolutely incredible. And so I'd call it champagne diet beer budget. You know, it's the idea that you can still have an amazing experience and you don't necessarily need to be dropping the same amount of money. And there's just so much. I mean, a lot of folks demonize beer these days because they're against gluten or they think it's going to make them fat. But when you learn that there's prebiotic and probiotic cultures in these Belgian beers that the monks have included that are indigenous yeasts that create these, it's really good for your gut. It's good for your gut fauna. And so as folks start to learn this, you don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's some really amazing things out there. And it's a lot of fun. So here we did a Belgian beer class on Sunday. I took folks through 12 different styles in Belgium. Because of Antwerp being one of the biggest ports before Amsterdam, all the spices around the world were coming through that port and they were brewing them in their beers. So there's an eclectic variety of styles. And so when folks get a chance to try that with different cheeses in front of them and different sweets, and they're going, wow, this is incredible, the combinations and the permutations, it's so much fun. And again, you can show up to Thanksgiving dinner when you've got 10 or 12 people and bring some really wonderful tall bottles of beer that'll just go wonderfully with all of these stuffings and sage and rosemary and complex herbs that wine might be troublesome with, or that you just don't want to drop $200, $300 on wine for that occasion, but you can come in with amazing beer and have a great experience. So it's always good to just have it in the pocket, the information and the knowledge, and it's a lot of fun. And most of the planet, if you're not in that 30 to 50 degree band across the top and the bottom where grapes can ripen perfectly, they're going to be brewing beer, and it's so much easier. Not everyone can buy a vineyard or make their own wine. It might cost $250,000 to $100 million to do that, but with beer you can brew at home, and you can. It's just it's more accessible to everyone around the planet, and so it's great to remember that culture and to keep it going. So I love beer. So. Well, I really love when I moved to Miami, I found that I really fit in the Coral Gables area. It's this wonderful suburb. It's got a lot of mom and pop spots, and on my day off, usually it's like one day off, I like to go somewhere new and try something new, or just go somewhere where people care about their food. And so I really love Chef Boland's food over at Lion and the Rambler. He actually came from San Diego, and he's doing something that's really different than a lot of the restaurants out here. I mean, he's basically going the farm to table approach. Every single ingredient he uses, he's working the ingredient into each phase of the meal, his prep on drying things out, or just his breads are incredible, 48 hours to make his bread. Every little thing has so much TLC and so much care. He's way too humble when it comes to his approach to marketing and getting things out there sometimes. So it's like he's the best hidden gem. He just got in the Michelin Guide this year, but I definitely think that he's worth a star. And I love going through. It's not pretentious at all. It's laid back in a good way, and the food's just incredible. So I go there. I love Omakai. They have a spot originally in Wynwood, but now they put one in Coconut Grove, and it's on my way home. So they have an omakase, like a box with fresh sushi that's absolutely like, it's traditional. They're not just putting a bunch of cream cheese or any of the things that a lot of these places are. The fish are all coming from are sourced really well, and there's just things you would never find, and the price is really reasonable. I mean, for $50 to $60 you can walk out with this amazing box that's got all of the pictures of the fish, and it's just beautiful. So I love going there, and I love barbecue. Barbecue is one of my favorite foods. And Janina Roman and Chef Mario have opened up a place in, I might say it wrong, Hialeah, and they do a really wonderful, she's Peruvian, and so she started her own Peruvian beer company. Again, I'm a stickler for my beers, and I'm an actual beer judge, so I usually would try folks' beers, and I'm supposed to give them my honest opinion, and I thought I was going to have to just, I didn't know what to do, because so sweet. And I was like, okay, I'm going to taste these beers I don't know. And then I tasted them, I was blown away. She did really great. There are all these local ingredients to Peru, purple corn and different root vegetables and things. And she's labeled each beer to help like anemia and to help like anti-inflammatory beers. And they're Belgian styles, so they have amazing flavor. And they go with her barbecue. So Belgian beers are great with barbecue to begin with. And the fact that she's doing Peruvian side dishes with American traditional recipes as well, like 14 to 16 hour brisket. The St. Louis style ribs are phenomenal. And so I think today, I mean, when I see the gray clouds and the fact that rain might come in, I'm going to go pick up some barbecue and enjoy it. I love that spot. And I've tried it next to other spots, which I won't say the name of, that are in the guide or, that are famous. And her stuff blows their stuff away. I mean, the food's just incredible. So I love it. And then I'm right down the street from a really great sports bar called Fritz and Franz. And they're I'm a Manchester United fan, and they're a Bayern Munich bar, but because of that they're German, so they have a lot of, like, I'm a schnitzel guy. I love any breaded meat. Schnitzel is fantastic, and they have all the great German beers poured properly in the right glassware, which is incredibly rare these days to find. And multiple screens up. I mean, they could probably fit 100 to 200 people in the room easy. So there's always a game you can find on that you want to watch. Their second favorite team, I think, is United. So like when they finish a Bayern match, they'll change their jerseys over, which is really great. But those are kind of my favorite gems around town right now. And I lived and worked in like Venice and Santa Monica, and so the beach to me in California, I've kind of over like the tourist spots, and like as much I'm sure there's great stuff in South Beach, my spine tightens a little bit when I have to cross the bridge over into that area, because sometimes it's like a lot to deal with, and I just can cruise right through Coral Gables and Coconut Grove and pick up food without a problem, and I love it. So yeah.